Hello and welcome everyone to another Inkarnate live stream. Long time no see. Today we're going to be covering all those juicy tips and tricks on how to make your coastlines look a little more believable with the fantasy world style. That means we're going to be covering things like inlets, archipelagos, bays, horns, broken ice, you name it. All the fun stuff that comes with coastlines. You want to follow along in this stream, feel free to clone and edit the map that is in the chat. If you're following on YouTube, you're going to find that in the video description. Hey, let's not waste any time and just jump right in, okay? Hello, everyone. Hey, Nimrod. Hey, first-time chatter Zane S. Let's go ahead and delete this title here and let's get hopping, all right? So the first thing really you're going to notice about this map is that I've kind of used a circular brush to make my land masses. So let me just pull that up real quick so you can kind of see. So you notice here that when I use my circle brush, you kind of have these rounded edges and it doesn't look very realistic, right? Your coastlines look a little straight or flat, right? And we're trying to avoid that, okay? So normally what I like to do is when you make your land masses first, start with that circle brush. But when it comes time to actually add some edges and stuff, you're going to switch over to what's called the Edgy Brush. So if you go up to the top, you're going to see there's a series of shapes here. You've got that grid, the circle brush, and there's this edge shape right here. This is absolutely quintessential. Now, if you're wondering what is the size of the edge that I should work with, that's going to be up here, the roughness and smoothness. That's dependent on scale. So if you have a rather large map that's scaled out, then you're probably going to want to make the edginess or roughness be very, very small. The slowest you can go is 3. Let me go ahead and just apply that so you can see it for yourself to see what that looks like. So when I apply it, look carefully, you see there's some nice edges there. Now right now they're kind of smooth, so I can just go Control or Alt Z, undo. And then if I go back up to that top and remove that smooth, you'll notice that the edges are going to be rougher. So when I apply, notice that there's a little bit more edginess to that, all right? Let's go ahead and remove that, all right? So the Edgy Brush is going to be your absolute ally when trying to make nice coastlines, okay? Let's start with some simple stuff, okay? The first one is going to be something like a horn. If you're not familiar with what a horn is, it's a piece of land that juts out and kind of creates a horn-like shape. Let's go ahead and use that Edgy Brush. Let's bring the size down. You know, if you hold down the shift key and use the mouse scroll wheel, you can change the size of the brush. That's kind of nice, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to make a horn. Now, what I like to do is just use a smaller brush first and make the shape. So maybe down to 7. And the way that you make a horn is not complex. Let's go ahead and pull up a path tool so I can kind of figure out the shape would be something like this. That could be a horn. You could do it, the horn be like this. Okay, so all of those are horns, right? There's even one right here. You can see there's a little bit of a horn here, all right? And horns are great for putting an interesting point of interest. Horns are great land formations, and they're really cool to add into your map. So let's go ahead and add one with the Edgy Brush, like we said. And you can access the mask tool by just simply clicking the M key, okay? Or you could click that shovel, up to you. Let's go ahead and make the horn. Now, when I have another piece of land next to my horn, then I try to make sure that maybe I could not necessarily connect them, but make it look like those two were maybe put together. So let me go like this. I'll make the shape. Oopsie, I got on subtract. That's not going to help. Do as I say, not as I do, okay? All right, there we go. Let's go ahead and make that shape. Remember, I got that edge brush on. Roughness 3, turn that smooth off, okay? So I'll go ahead and create the shape of the horn like this. Let's go over here, nice, go in, add some shape. And then I can go ahead and fill that in, okay? So there is a fill option. If you go over to the shape and there's a bucket fill, and if you click this, it should fill that in. Now, sometimes what happens is the tool will not recognize the negative space, so it might accidentally, oh, never mind that. You see what happens? So sometimes when you're using the Edgy Brush, you have to make sure that the outline that you're creating is thick enough, okay? Hey, Social Zorro and Jirex001, welcome. Lots of first-time chatters here. So glad you guys are here. So just make sure that when you do that edge part, just make sure that there's no little sections that are kind of disconnected from each other. So let me try doing that again. So let's make this nice and thick. This is something you might notice with the fill tool. It's not complex. So let's go ahead and do this, and let's try it one more time, and it should fill in that small piece. There you go, see? So just make sure that the edges are all the way connected so that the fill tool will work properly, okay? So there's that nice horn that we have. And you notice that the coastline is quite different. Notice how there's some edges here, while the coastline here is rather straight, okay? So once that's done, you can just go in and just take that edge brush and just go along some of your coastlines like this to get rid of that soft edge, okay? So you don't have to worry about making your coastlines perfect at first. Just get your landmass shapes down. Go ahead and add on your stamps and stuff like that. Because what I like to do is sometimes the biomes and some of the locations will decide what the coastline will be like. So let me give you an example about that. So for instance, I'm up here at my Arctic, okay? And I kind of want to show the illusion of cracked ice or broken ice. These flat edges or rounded edges of the coastline look a little weird, right? So first thing we can do is, of course, go around the edge with that edgy brush. That's step one. That's going to give us a little bit of edge to work with, right? We have those nice edges there. Let's just do the whole one, or at least part of it, like this. Okay. Now, once you've done that part, then you can start going in and start creating this cracked ice feeling. And the way that I do that is a circle brush. I don't use the edgy brush because there's a very small, the edges don't get small enough aren't really small enough to create these small thin lines to create this cracked ice, okay? So let's go ahead and just take this circle brush, just like I have here. I'm gonna bring the size way down. Let's bring it down to maybe 1 or 2. And what I like to do is just go in and just create some lines, and we're gonna create this cracked ice effect, okay? So I go in, do some wiggles like this. In fact, I might even want to go down to 1. Let's just try that. 1 like this. And what's really nice is you can just go in and just take some random line strokes like this. Just do some curly cues all along that edge. And don't worry about the line stuff. We're going to fix all that stuff. What you can go in is just shoot up some lines like this. And we're going to try to break up this edge to give it this kind of cracked ice feel to it. Okay? And of course, there's those straight lines. So you're going to go in and just do these nice kind of S curves to make sure that those edges aren't super weird. And don't worry, we're going to cover a lot more on how to make this look right. So let's just go ahead and just throw in our initial line work. Don't worry about the straight lines part because we're going to go and fix that, okay? I see some questions in there. And we can get to a Q&A in the end, okay? Because I don't want this video to be super ridiculously long, okay? So it looks kind of weird at first. Don't worry about that. We're going to go in with the add mode, okay? Set that to 1. And then we're going to go in and just quickly go over that with some squiggles. What we're doing is trying to break up those straight lines. There we go. Okay. And you're starting to get some weird, bizarre, little broken kind of islands. This is the same technique that I kind of use to make archipelagos, and we'll cover that next, by the way. Absolutely. Okay. There we go. It looks like there's some lag a little bit because I'm recording. That's why those lines are turning out straight. When you are doing it, you probably won't experience that same problem. So if you're wondering, well, why are the lines so straight? It's lag. Recording, and I'm operating in 3K. Don't worry, you can always go back a little bit. First time chatter. I'm glad that you're here, by the way. Ciao, Sarah. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and you can see the difference, right? You have these broken up kind of like islands all along the shore here, kind of breaking it up and making it look like there's some broken ice. And there are textures that you can also apply as well. So there is some cracked ice textures. If you just click this and just go click in cracked ice, and you know what, you can go click the Inkarnate tag. And if you have the Pro, version, you can actually use textures and stamps across all styles. So I totally recommend you get the Pro version so that you have access to everything in one style. Okay, and you got this texture here. We're going to set it to FG. Okay, and you know, we're also going to go to our advanced settings. If you don't know where that is, it's right here at the bottom. And sometimes you might not be able to see it. Just scroll with your mouse wheel. You go down and you'll be able to see all the options here. One thing we want to do is check the size, okay? Whenever you're using a texture, think about what scale you're at, because it would be really weird if all your stamps will set at a small scale and your textures are massive, like 100% size. So always remember to rescale the size of your textures when you use them, okay? Just keep that in mind. There we go. Now we got some cracked there. I'm just going to go ahead and just go a little swipe down here like this, and you can even do it on the BG layer as well along those edges to give it some extra break. So 1 second here, let's switch over to BG. Give it a minute to load over. Another first time chatter. I am loving this. Lots of first time chatters. Welcome everybody. So glad that you're here. We're switching over to BG. We're going to use that same texture, and don't go too far off. Don't go too far away from the coastline. You don't want to go all the way out to here like this, right? That's going to look weird, okay? So instead, just keep that texture tight and close. There we go. And now you have some broken ice as well off of there, giving it a nice little broken ice feeling to it, right? So that's nice. Let's talk about some other land formations. We've covered a horn. We've covered broken or shattered ice. There's also archipelagos. There's bays. There's so many. There's what is a connection with a swamp connecting to the ocean. We're going to cover that too. So let's make sure that we cover all of those things. Right down here, we've got a nice swamp, and then we'll do an archipelago because I just did something similar to an archipelago already. So you have this nice swamp down here. How is it that you would connect your swamp next to the ocean? How would I do that, right? So I'm going to go to my brush tool or my mask tool, M key. I'm just going to go with subtract option and just choose the size 1. And what I want to do is I want to make it look like there's a transition between the swamp water and that connects to the ocean right here at the bottom, as you can see. So what I'll want to do is I can make a series of rivers or little inlets that kind of connect into it. So I'll start at the ocean and then move my way in like this. And what I'll do is I'll just connect them with just one for now, and then we can start creating all these funky looking shapes after that. So let's just connect these to the ocean like this. Connect this to the ocean. There we go. So those are connected. Now that those are connected to the ocean, let's connect them to each other. So maybe I'll connect this one over to here like this, and then connect this one like this. And you know, it's not hard to figure out where to put it. Just look for the bend right here. There's a bend right here. Let's go ahead and just use that bend and go out there. There's another bend right here. Let's connect that one. Let's go ahead and create another one that goes over to here. Okay? And then once you've done that, of course, then you can go ahead and hit your Edgy Brush and just start breaking up the edges with the Subtract Edgy Brush. And that will break that up. And it will even include some little islands and stuff. Oh, there's a little artifact right here. Just know that when you are, of course, using the Edgy Brush, there might be some very small land artifacts. Let me give you an example of that. So when I'm using the small brush like this, and I'm going around like this, you're going to notice that there's going to be some really tiny artifacts. There's a small one right here, you can see right here. And some might end up being even smaller. And when you have those really small artifacts, remember to look for those in your final check at the end. Notice, let me give an example of one right here. See this really small artifact right here? That looks weird. So you can go ahead with that brush, just subtract, and I just like to use the circular brush because if you use the edgy brush, it might end up creating even more small artifacts. So the way to fix that artifact thing is just be sure to go look over the render before you're done. So, and that's why I usually recommend that when you make your land masses, you start with the circle brush and then break up your coastline edges with the edgy brush. Whether it's the subtract mode or add mode, that is entirely up to you. So if you look here at this swamp, we've connected it with a series of maybe rivers or bodies of water, and we've broken up that edge. That's going to be something that you're going to do on all of your coastlines, is that edgy brush. Remember, you can use the add mode or the subtract mode. I'll just go ahead and do both just so you can see. I did the subtract mode on this one down at the bottom. Let me do the add mode right here, and you can see what it looks like when I do it. Oopsie, I forgot to add edge. That edgy brush, remember, 3 and smooth off are going to be your best friends. Okay, so if I go ahead and there's the add mode, right? If I do the subtract mode, you do it this way. Now, do you know when to use the add or subtract mode? Not complex. It really is determined by what is next to your coastline. So if you have some hills like right here, super close to the coastline, it doesn't make much sense to use the subtract mode because, why? Your hill is going to overlap into the ocean, right? So that doesn't make any sense. So instead, it makes sense to use the add mode so that way you don't accidentally push one of your stamps out in or delete some landmass that's connecting the base of your stamps, right? So that's when you know when to use the add mode and the subtract mode. It just depends on the limited amount of space that you're working with, okay? All right, let's talk about bays, okay? So we've already got a bay right here. This right here is a bay, okay? Oh, baby, this is our bay. Now, how do I make a bay on a landmass, okay? Let's go ahead and just look for a landmass. Let's put one in right here. I see this nice spot right here. There's also a good spot right here for a bay. And a lot of different options that you can kind of choose from, right? Let's go ahead and put our bay right here. And I'm going to have to delete some paths here. I was using the path tool to remove some interesting things. So let's go with a bay, okay? Let's go with, for now, the circle brush, okay? I don't want to add too much edges, and let's go ahead and make a fitting size. Okay, I want to put a bay right here. Now, how is it that I would go about incorporating that? Just get the overall shape first. A bay is going to have kind of a circular shape to it, not entirely, but somewhat circular. So let's go ahead and subtract mode here. Let's go with 9, and let's go ahead and just remove some space like this. Okay, there we go. Just clear it out. Don't worry about the overall shape yet. You'll get to that later. Let's make it a little bit bigger here. There we go. And we'll remove those paths once I find them. In fact, I could probably just turn them all off. I probably don't need them. Okay. And, oh, there we go. Landscape shadows. I don't need these. Let's go ahead and delete those. There we go. Okay. Now, once you've got the overall shape of the bay you want, then you can go in with that edgy brush, right? If the bay is big, you want it to be big, then I recommend the subtract mode for the edgy brush. So let's go in now and break up these edges and just kind of create that shape that we want. So there's our nice bay right there. Now, again, look for those artifacts. There we go. Cool. Now, we can also make islands, okay? So making a bay is not complex. Where you put one is really up to you. There's actually no rules on where you put your bays. It's a fantasy map. You just need to figure out if you want a bay on a particular landmass, then just figure out where you want to put it, okay? So you have a bay here. Now, what's really nice about bays too is that you can go in and throw in some little islands as well along the bay or just along the coastline. So let's go with some islands next to our bay and along our coastlines. Making islands, there are two methods, the add mode and the subtract mode, okay? I'm going to use the edgy brush, but let's just say I want an island right here, like this. Okay, I have a little, oh, actually it connected. Let's do that one more time. Let's do a single dot. There we go. Oopsie, they connected again. My mistake. That's the fun thing about the Edgy Brush. Just think of it as like operation. You don't want to accidentally touch the edges, okay? So just single click and you'll make some islands with the add mode of the mask tool. Now, if you want to make an island with the subtract mode of the mask tool, you're going to be removing segments. So let's say that I wanted to make this part right here an island. Just take the subtract mode and remove a section. Let's say that you want to make another island. Let's just go in like this and just remove this section. Now you have another island. Let's say I want to make even another island. Let's go in like this. And then I have another island. So you're starting to see the technique here, right? What you go in, just carve out a river or a strait that's going to carve out that to make that island. Want to make another island? Let's put another one right here. Now, if you don't want to use the Edgy Brush, you can also use the circle brush as well. Let's just show you what that looks like. So I'll go in and just connect like this. And you have another island with the smooth brush. Up to you which one you want to use. Okay, let's take a step back. You can see the difference, right, between the Edgy Brush and the circle brush and how they add islands, right? So islands are not complex. Two methods, add mode, subtract mode. It all depends on the kind of biome, the landscape that you're working with, right? If you don't have a lot of room to use the subtract mode, use the add mode, okay? So that's really the trick to doing that, okay? All right, we're at a lot of changes here. I want to set a good example, so I'm going to save, okay? And we've got just a few more minutes left. Let's cover a couple more parts of water, okay? I still want to cover some inlets, maybe show you some more horns. We can also cover how to make more archipelagos, all that stuff. So we're going to be covering all that stuff. Let's just save first. If you don't have a very good machine, I totally recommend that you save often. And I mean a lot. About 100 changes works. It's okay to get carried away. You're making some changes. That's okay. But once you start getting into the 400, 500 changes, be careful because you don't want something like an internet timeout to happen. The map gets corrupted and then you might lose some work. So to avoid that, save the map, refresh the page. It's an online tool. So save, refresh, and just do this from time. The refreshing part, just do from time to time. As for saving, definitely set some kind of limit. 300 changes, make a save, okay? So I thank the people in the chat for pointing out that it's always a good habit to save often, okay? So just remember, save, 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 save. All right, let's dive back in. Let's go ahead and continue on with our Edgy Brush with the add mode because there's not much room. Notice how my forests right here are up close. It doesn't make any sense to use the subtract mode. No one is being attacked, by the way. I'm glad that you mentioned it. It is super important to say. Okay, let's go with that Edgy Brush with the add mode of the mask tool and just go over our edges, right? And it's not enough just to add that. Don't be afraid to throw out some interesting, weird shapes, right? Throw in maybe a little mini horn, okay? Throw in some little triangle shapes to kind of give it a kind of a, I don't know, a shattered, broken feel to it. You see, adding in some interesting shapes can really kind of give it some character. Don't be afraid. It's a fantasy map. Don't worry about making your coastlines look exactly like the real world. What makes fantasy is a fantasy element, right? A great place to put these kind of like triangles jutting out is like maybe like a wasteland. Let's say this was an orange like wasteland and you wanted to show that maybe there was some shatter, right? Some weird looking kind of shapes here like this. Great shapes to kind of add in. If you don't like that triangle shape, throw in some weird like hammer shapes. You can go in and make this hammer like shape. See, I got this weird like hammer shape, and then you can go in and throw in some archipelagos, do some single clicks if you just do some single clicks with the add mode, click, 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 all along that edge, just do some single clicks with your mouse all along that edge, and you can get some nice, interesting artifact kind of little islands. Another way to kind of get archipelagos. See how I've went ahead and thrown in a larger landmass shape, one of those triangles, like one of these triangles right here, and then I single clicked in islands like this, okay? And you can use your mouse, a pen, whatever it is you're using, okay? So making interesting coastlines is not complex, but it does require some patience, okay? Like, it's not as simple as just one click and you're gonna have your perfect coastline. You do have to work a little bit to kind of get the shapes that you want, to kind of break up the monotony of flat edges. All those things require, you know, not a perfect attention to detail, but a little bit, right? And it's okay, because this is going to make you a better mapper, a better cartographer when you are going in and checking out the details, right? Because details mean everything. You know, your map may look fantastic at a distance when you scale out, but when you zoom in, you find it kind of lacks a little bit. Don't be down on yourself. Just be sure to go in with that edgy brush and really give some definition to your coastlines. Okay, so you notice how this coastline right here, it just kind of looks totally different from this flat edge right here. So the edgy brush absolutely is going to be your ally, okay? Let's cover some water stuff, okay? So we've already done something on rivers, but let's cover on how we might have some water kind of jutting out. So let's go with the subtract mode, size 1 brush, and I'm going to use these trees, these forests right here for my water. So what's really cool is, let's say you have a forest and some negative space. I can go in like this, snake in the negative space. The negative space is going to be where there is no stamps or landmass. You notice how I'm cutting that up and there's a little bit of an island there, right? Let's go in with this one. Cut up in between the landmass, go around this edge and go in like that. Okay, let's do the same thing here. Let's do another one right here. Add it in, go around the forest, don't touch it. And then you have another section, okay? So when you're making your kind of coastlines, don't be afraid to use your biomes as a way to add in interesting elements like that, okay? So, and of course, you can go in with the subtract mode with the circle brush, and you can make little sections that kind of come off like this. So we'll go in like this. Let's put another one over here. You kind of connect it here. And what you end up doing is you kind of create a smaller little streams that aren't big like the edgy brush one. So just go in and just kind of connect them like this. Let's put another one in here like this, around this edge. Go around, put one there, perfect. And then we'll put another one right here. Let's put another one right here, like this. There we go. And you start getting some character when you're working on your coastlines, right? And again, I just want to mention that you won't experience this same lag most likely because you won't have OBS running. So if it seems laggy for me, don't worry, it likely won't be for you. It's just that I'm working in 3K editing on top of recording. So please don't be discouraged or anything like that if you notice some lag, okay? There we go. Let me zoom out. See, a little bit more character. You got some interesting story going on here with these large kind of straits or bodies of water with the smaller ones as well. Variation is super important, okay? All I can say is that it looks really weird when you have every lake, every river being around the same thickness. So varying weight and size is super important in the natural world, and it gives it a more natural look. That also applies to your islands. It's really weird when the islands are all the exact same size. You notice how these island fragments are about the same size? Don't be afraid to go in and make a larger island and then smaller islands around it like an archipelago. Let's go ahead and give you an example of what I'm talking about, okay? So I have this. Let's go up here and do this one, okay? So I'm gonna go with my edgy brush I'm going to break up this edge here, and I'm going to make a little, make a fairly large island, or a decent size island, like this. Make that shape. So you have a bigger size island, right? Now go in with your single clicks and put them around the island, okay? This is how you make an archipelago. Put a series of larger islands and then surround them with smaller islands. So that's how easy it is to make an archipelago. And of course, you can use that small brush as well to make even smaller islands, because the edgy brush is limited. So now I'll just take some single clicks and put some dots along this. So you see the method: large islands, medium-sized islands, and then small islands. That's how you put together an archipelago, okay? And if it's too procedural, if you feel like the islands are too procedural, they're too dot-like, just expand them, make them a little bit bigger, okay? So making an archipelago is not complex. Follow this technique. Large island first, medium-sized islands second, and then the little tiny islands last, okay? So putting together an archipelago is not complex. It's a three-step process: big to medium to small. Okay. Well, I think that's going to go ahead and be it. I've kind of explained as much as I can about how to create more realistic coastlines. The trick is just to use the edgy brush, whether it's the add mode or subtract mode. Again, that is all determined on the scale and what kind of biomes are closest to your coastline, so you know how to use them. And don't forget to use variety and size. So if you have big bodies of water or big rivers or big sections of water, make sure to make smaller ones, medium size, small. It's that same concept. Nature has variety in size and scope and scale, and you want to reflect that on your map to make it look more realistic. Now, I only have one quick announcement. Next month, we're going to be going back to 3 p.m. PST because the summer is over. And so we're going to be switching back over to that time instead of the 9 a.m. PST. Okay, so we're going to be starting that next month. So just be prepared for that. Following week, not this coming week, but the following week, we are going to be doing how to create dynamic battle maps. That means, how is it that I make it so that my players interact with the environment, whether it's pushing an enemy combatant, off a cliff, or making them trip on a log or get snagged in some thorns, or how do I make the environment to work to my advantage or to give the environmental advantage to the enemy, so that way it gives it more challenge for your players. So dynamic combat or dynamic encounters is super important. We're going to be covering all of that, okay? All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate you. Thank you for being here. I hope this helped. And by the way, there is no update on the Path Tool 2.0. We are working on it as furiously as we can, so just be patient with us, okay? All right, thank you so much for coming and joining us. Feel free to ping me in our Discord. I'm always available to chat with you if you need help. Ping our mentors as well. Our community is incredible, so please join our Discord, all right? You can reach out to me anytime if you need help. Always glad to help. Thank you so much for being here. Please stay safe and healthy and merry map making, everybody. Love you all. Enjoy the rest of your week.